Hello everyone, welcome to the presentation. Today, I will be talking about efficacy of flipped classes. This presentation is divided into four parts: instruction of flipped classes, advantages and disadvantages of this approach, and finally, I will get to the conclusion. So, let's begin. First, I will talk about what flipped classes really are. Have you ever heard of the term flipped classes before? What is that? As this term says, classes are flipped like this? Obviously, no. So, what is flipped? According to Lodge in 2000, flipped classes mean events that have traditionally taken place inside the classroom now take place outside the classroom, and vice versa. In other words, in class activities are flipped into activities which are done outside of the classroom. Thus, activities are flipped. Let's take a closer look at flipped classes by comparing with traditional classes. In traditional classes, mostly students are not required to do anything before the class, so they learn a new concept during the class, which is why class styles are more or less like a lecture. Then, the gained knowledge is practiced after the class as homework. On the other hand, in flipped classes, all the lectures are delivered online as a video, and students read a textbook before the class. This is why most of the time in class can be spent on discussion and addressing more complex problems. In the end, students can do further research by themselves. Overall, what students do inside and outside in the traditional classes is flipped, as shown in red and yellow in the diagram above. As two approaches take different procedures, roles of teachers and students are also different. Although teachers are the master of knowledge and students are relatively passive in traditional classes, in flipped classes, students take more initiatives. Next, let's move on to advantages of flipped classes. There are mainly three strong points in this approach. First, students can learn at their own pace. Thanks to online delivery, there is no interruption and students have limitless number of access to the lecture videos. This is really beneficial for both high and low level students because they don't have to care about other students' progress. Second advantage is there's more collaborative and interactive time in class. Since all the students have already taken the lecture, during the class, students can have more fruitful and meaningful discussion, and also they can address higher level problems. During this time, teachers can also help slow learners. Finally, students can perform better in this approach. According to Ross's study in 2015, students answered they felt they had a better and clearer understanding in this approach. Indeed, they scored better than those who took the traditional classes at the test. Although there are many good advantages in this approach, there are some disadvantages as well. Firstly, teachers have to work more. In addition to preparing for the class activities, teachers also have to make the video lectures, which is added to this new flipped classroom. Secondly, there are some technological issues such as lack of internet access and also teachers' skills to use technology. Finally, some students still prefer traditional styles. Thus, they don't prepare for the class, which leads the class activities to be meaningless. Overall, I have talked about what is good and what is not good about flipped classes so far. So now, what I can suggest here is that even though there are some disadvantages, advantages seem to surpass because there is clear evidence that students actually improve their study. And this approach, therefore, seems worth installment into the teaching practice. So, as a conclusion, instead of sudden shift to flipped classes, first we can combine this approach with traditional approaches. Then, if students get used to it and show some preferences, we can move more toward flipped based classes. So, this is the end of the presentation, and here is a reference section. Thank you for your listening.